Hello and welcome to A Picture in 1,000 Words. I'm Michael Fiedler. Thank you for joining me. The title of this episode is Unpacking Happiness. So the first thing I want to say is that I don't like the term happiness. I think by itself, it's very superficial. And I think unless we get beneath the surface, we'll never really get there, which can actually make things like finding happiness in a bottle or a pill somewhat tempting. So as I often do in these situations, I like to unpack my thoughts and to take a complex idea and to find its individual dimensions. And so that's what I hope to do with this episode, is to find sort of the gears and the drivers of what I believe lasting happiness is how it can be achieved. And so as you can probably tell from the slide, I'm going to follow a past, present, future narrative, which I think is a constructive framework that anyone can relate to. So in terms of the past, we all have complicated pasts. We all have things about our past that we don't like, that we wish we could change, that just sort of make us shudder if we think about them for too long. But the reality is, each one of those grains of sand slipping through the hourglass plays a role in who you are. It's just essentially your identity. You are the sum of your previous experiences. And so gratitude for your past is a way of taking ownership of it. It's a way of finding self-love, because if you don't love yourself, you're never going to find happiness. And from my own personal experience, my childhood was complicated. There was a lot of divorce growing up. There was some abuse of the sexual and substance variety. I had body issues growing up. I was a chubby kid. And I also had a brother who was a bit of an a-hole. But looking back on that, having a lot of divorce in my family taught me to really care about the sanctity of marriage and how important it is to choose a really good partner. And I agree with Warren Buffett when saying that choosing your life partner is probably the most important decision that you can make. In terms of the abuse I was exposed to, it taught me to be empathetic of the human condition and to realize that sinners and saints can be one and the same person. And you can never really understand somebody until you really understand their suffering and what made them who they are. In terms of body issues, I'm glad I was a chubby kid because it taught me to care about what I put in my body and to care about taking care of myself. And I think that'll pay dividends for the rest of my life. And for my brother, we have a great relationship now, but he was tough on me growing up. And that got me to be brave and courageous. And now I approach life completely unafraid of what may come my way. And I do have fear, but it doesn't stop me. And his influence played a big part in that. And so I hope that illustrates how one can have gratitude for their past, even if it comes from some ugliness. In terms of the present is tricky because it's fleeting. Time moves so fast or so slow, depending on your perspective. And I think the human perspective on time is dictated by two things. And that's fun and boring. Things that are fun make time move fast. Whether it be you're out with a friend or you're at a sporting event or you're playing a video game or watching a movie or reading a book, time can move by very quickly if you are having a good time with it. Whereas things that are boring tend to slow time down. You're stuck at the airport or you're in traffic or you're somewhere you don't want to be. Things that are boring can really just slow time down. And what's interesting about those two things is that they're intrinsically driven. It's all about your own individual mindset, not what others think. So for example, take this person bungee jumping here. This person could be doing their very first bungee jump, and this jump could be a rush, and it could be over in an instant and over before they even know it. And they had such a blast when they jumped off this bridge. But it could be their 975th jump, and maybe it's kind of boring, and maybe they're kind of tired of this river, and they're sort of over it. And the reality is it's just you that dictates what's fun and what's boring, and that you actually have control over how you perceive time and how you relate to it. And a way to approach that is to find things that you enjoy and to find things that you enjoy doing. And the interesting thing there is that you don't have to explain yourself in those situations. Just because someone else doesn't like it or doesn't think that it's fun or may think that it's boring, it doesn't matter. If you think math problems or popping bubble paper are fun, then you go ahead and do it, and you just go ahead and enjoy it. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And this can also be really constructive in relationships. And so for my own personal marriage, I don't like paperwork. I really can't stand, reading instructions and filling out forms and double and triple checking. It's just something that I just don't find particularly enjoyment in. But my wife does. And she actually likes that type of meticulousness and really combing through the details and making sure she gets it right. And I go ahead and let her do that. But she hates doing dishes. She loves to cook. She loves to make a big mess, but she does not like cleaning it up. But I don't mind. And so I find personal satisfaction in scrubbing and drying and scrubbing and drying. And so she'll do the taxes, I'll do the dishes, and we're great. And we're both enjoying our present because we're doing things that each of us enjoys. Or I should say doing what the other hates more. But the take home here is, whether it be something big like your career or something small like how you get ready in the morning, really do things and prioritize things that you enjoy, because that will make your present worth living. Now, moving into the future, I believe that it's important to be optimistic about your future. And when I was growing up, people would say, are you a glass half full person or are you a glass half empty type person? But in the reality is we can be both. Now, it's easy to be pessimistic. It's easy to find doubt and skepticism on a given situation. Like, take this particular episode, for example. It's easy for me to say, no one cares. No one's going to get any value from this. You're just talking into thin air. It doesn't matter. Why bother? This is just a giant waste of your time. But who knows? Maybe there's somebody out there today, maybe it's 10 years from now, that finally sees or listens to this and actually gets some value from it. And the funny part is that it doesn't really matter, because I enjoy doing this. I actually enjoy making these slides, putting these things together, recording these messages, disseminating them. I get personal satisfaction out of it. And what gives me the fodder to do this, sort of the lessons that I'm trying to articulate, are coming from my past and my own personal experiences. So right here, this episode is a perfect example of me being grateful for my past and the experiences that have made me me, doing something that I enjoy in a way of finding purpose in my present. And whether or not this actually translates into anything wondrous is of my own mind. And I can decide, like, well, I can be pessimistic, but I can be optimistic as well. And I can think, you know what, who knows? Maybe somebody will be touched by this. Maybe this will actually have the influence that I hope it does. And until I'm proven otherwise, I'm going to stick to that hypothesis, because that's going to make me make another episode, and then another episode, and then another episode. And I get to shape my future and build and mold what I believe to be a happy life. And that's my takeaway. You can take control of your life. You can find your own happiness if you have gratitude for your past, if you enjoy your present, and you're optimistic about your future. And so in terms of PowerPoint features, not a lot of sophisticated elements here. I did some soft edges with the picture in the middle there, and that's what allows it to blend to the left and to the right. There's some color matching with some of the font treatment, and also you'll notice that the words I want you to pay attention to, gratitude, enjoy, and optimistic, are a little bit bigger and bolded, and they also have a shadow which makes them pop a little bit more. But that's essentially all I did here. And the last thing that I wanted to say is that while a lot of these episodes so far have been very kind of like Hallmark and Disney friendly, some of my subsequent ones are going to be a little bit darker. I'm going to drift into issues that are a little more controversial, and to really find truth that's really deep down in there. I really want to do some penetrating ideas. So I hope that you stick around for those, because I think they're going to be fun. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and take care.